Okay. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Mr.
Good morning,
Bishop.
everybody. Thank you all for coming to this markup. Okay, we come to order. Today we consider the fiscal year. The fiscal year 2019 Military Construction, Veteran Affairs, and related agencies bill. This is the first subcommittee markup of the season and a quick start for the committee a month after the fiscal year 2018 omnibus was signed into law. And consistent with the two-year budget caps agreement, this bill provides $96.9 billion in discretionary budget authority. I appreciate all you coming out to this daybreak markup, and we're trying to accommodate the.
This is daybreak for you?
Daybreak, well, it's not all.
Ask by Deo. I think he probably has.
For us, a little different.
Yeah, well, I know. Look at him. He's always struggling with jet lag down there.
And farming.
And there's that. Yeah. Well, it's not oh dark 30, but we're good. But we're trying to accommodate the important hearings on the other subcommittees that are occurring this morning, and hope our business can be finished by 10 a.m. In the interest of time, I don't plan to give the longer opening statement that I usually do describing the detailed contents of the bill. Your staff were able to review the bill and report yesterday, and I hope they'll be able to relay to you the elements of the package that you're most interested in. The funding recommendation includes $10.3 billion in military construction funds, $921 million in OCO funds, as requested by the President, $85.3 billion for the Department of Veterans Affairs as requested by the President, and $921 million for the related agencies in our bill. The American Battle Monuments Commission, Arlington National Cemetery, Armed Forces Retirement Home, and the Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims. This year, there's been increased member interest in our bill. Members' requests are up 25% over the fiscal year 2018 level. We've considered over 1,300 requests since March 16th, and opened the database once so that members could modify their requests after seeing the omnibus bill. We put a lot of effort into looking at each one and have accommodated the vast majority of requests. So the staff hasn't seen much daylight, and I have to thank them all for their hard work on both sides here, for all the work they did on this. So, all of you, Kia, Matt, Sue, Sarah. So I greatly appreciate the participation and support of our subcommittee members on both sides of the aisle as we consider priorities and funding levels for the important programs in our bill, and held budget hearings to the Department of Defense installation secretaries and the VA secretary, former VA secretary. I couldn't do it without the fine work of subcommittee ranking member Mrs. Wasserman Schultz for all her good work and cooperation. The gentle lady from Florida is an active and tenacious participant in our debates, and never shies away from drilling down to get to the crux to the issue. So I want to thank her publicly for all of her. Yeah, she is not a shrinking violet. She is not. So I want to thank her sincerely for her partnership. I'd also like to recognize the chair and the ranking member of the full committee for their strong support, Mr. Friedingheisen and Mrs. Lowy, for all that they've done to help with the bill. Chairman Friedingheisen has provided us continued leadership and the funding levels we need to serve our military and our veterans, and he and Mrs. Lowy continue to ask the hard questions that keep the focus on the veteran but serve the taxpayers as well. All of us on the subcommittee certainly appreciate their strong leadership. The bill provides comprehensive support for service members, military families, and veterans. It supports our troops with the facilities and services necessary to maintain readiness and morale at bases here in the States and around the world. It provides the Department of Defense. It provides for the Department of Defense schools and health clinics that take care of our military families, and the bill funds our veteran health care systems to ensure that our promise to care for those who have sacrificed in defense of the nation continues as those men and women return home. We owe this to our veterans and are committed to sustained oversight so that programs deliver what they promise, and taxpayers are well served by the investments we continue to make. In military construction, the bill builds on substantial increases we were able to include in last year's omnibus. Total funding, including OCO, is $412 million above fiscal year 2018 and a hair below the request. I'm happy to note that the recommended funding level includes $837 million to take care of most critical projects on DOD's unfunded priorities list, which I know is important to many of you. The recommendation funds family housing at $1.6 billion, DOD schools at $368 million, hospital construction at $361 million, We provide $467 million, the request level for the Guard and Reserve. We fund the NATO Security Investment Program at $171 million as requested to support infrastructure for wartime deterrence, peace, and crisis operations and training requirements. We've also, I should say, moving to VA. VA funding in the bill is 4.8% over last year's enacted level. Under the recommendation, VA will have $85.3 billion available for fiscal year 2019, which is the same as the requested level. And so we have spread the internal funding pieces differently than the request. 2 weeks ago, OMB submitted a VA budget amendment totaling $2.4 billion, $500 million for VA's current non-VA care programs, and $1.9 billion as a Band-Aid to keep the choice program going until the authorizers replace it with a consolidated non-VA care program. The recommendation includes in the mark. The recommendation includes the $500 million, but not the $1.9 billion. We don't want to start funding the existing choice program with our funds, since it has always been funded by the authorizers with mandatory money. We will certainly pick up funding for the new program, which we hope will be in effect by the end of fiscal year 19. In medical care, we were able to fully fund the budget request for programs our members have requested in mental health care, homeless assistance, suicide prevention, PTSD, TBI, and opioid abuse prevention. In line with the budget caps deal, the bill provides for $2 billion for VA facility infrastructure repair, with priority placed on seismic correction and non-recurring maintenance. In addition, the regular major and minor construction accounts also receive substantial increases. I think our Californians, Barbara's not here, I wanted her to hear that, but the seismic corrections are very important. We provide $1.2 billion for the electronic health record and have multiple safeguards written in to track VA's progress as they develop it. I know this is very important both to the chairman and the ranking member of the full committee. We have also funded increases for disability claims processing and the Board of Veterans Appeal. So to close out, this is a solid bill that's focused on the needs of service members, veterans, and their family. We had to balance priorities and figure out needs versus wants, which are tasks that are central to our duties as appropriators. In total, the recommendation is $4.2 billion over the fiscal year 2018 level. Again, a 4.5% increase. The funding level for VA is the highest ever in military construction. We've taken care of housing, schools, hospitals, and operational mission needs, and so I certainly urge you to support this bill. And right now, I'd like to turn this over to Ms. Wasserman-Scholes, our distinguished ranking member, for her remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate you yielding. Mr. Chairman, since my first day as ranking member, you have set a very collegial and cooperative tone, as you have throughout your congressional career. I want to thank you for continuing to be inclusive as we work through this process. If every appropriations bill was written this way, and if every committee approached their work the way you have led this committee, we would probably get rid of a lot of the polarization and animus that unfortunately has infected the legislative process. I believe the chairman has worked very hard and with an extremely limited amount of time, Mr. Big Chairman, to get us to this point. But just to go over a few highlights, I'm pleased with several aspects of the bill. The MilCon portion of the bill is up by $241 million over last year's enacted level. In my opinion, the FY 2019 request adequately provides funding for both the active and reserve components. I was also pleased to see that for the base realignment and closure account, the bill provides $54 million above the FY 2019 budget request, which will help expedite the cleanup of former Defense Department sites, which is a priority to many members across the country. I'll note that this morning the President's nominee for Secretary of the VA has withdrawn his name from further consideration by the United States Senate, which, given the concerns about his qualifications and experience and troubling credible allegations against his conduct, was appropriate. I certainly hope that the President next nominates a person who is worthy of consideration and who will treat the nation's veterans with the respect that they deserve. And we have somebody who is capable of running the second largest agency in the United States government and capable of honoring their service. That having been said, For the Department of Veterans Affairs, Title II is $3.9 billion above the FY18 enacted level, which is a 5% increase over that enacted level. The MARC also fully funds the FY18 second bite of the apple, $500 million, which brings the total amount provided for the VA medical care to $71.2 billion, which is a 2% increase over the FY18 enacted level. I am pleased, and we worked together on this. We actually all worked together on this, and I think it was a consensus opinion that the bill rejected the administration's proposal to combine the medical services and community care accounts into what would have been one enormous account. For us, as appropriators, maintaining the old structure of 2 accounts offers the most transparency for the committee. Accountability has been important. This is the second largest agency. This is a colossal amount of money that we're dealing with, and it is important to get it right for us to be able to monitor and control spending in these 2 areas. The bill also honors the budget deal and includes $2 billion for infrastructure improvements, allocated between $750 million for seismic corrections and $800 million for non-recurring maintenance. It includes $100 million for major construction for National Cemetery Administration projects and $650 million in minor construction for the Veterans Health Administration projects. This is vital funding to help the VA address its infrastructure issues, which I think each and every one of us can attest to with our communications with our own VA. Mr. Chairman, while I believe this is a good allocation for the FY19 MilCon-VA bill, there is one problem that needs to be addressed as we move through the process. That will not come as a surprise to you, and that is that the bill includes $69 million for a high-value detention facility at Guantanamo Bay Naval Station. Mr. Chairman, there are 41 detainees at Gitmo. This works out to a cost of $1.7 million per detainee. In my opinion, this is a huge waste of resources, especially when balanced against the needs of our own military service members, so I strongly oppose the inclusion of this project in our bill. On a lighter note, I'll have more to say about the chairman at full committee, but it has been an absolute pleasure to serve with you. Chairman Den and I came in together in the class of 2004, and he's been a class act, a statesman, and a steady, reliable, and strong voice for his constituents, a badly needed voice of reason during difficult times. But most of all, I've been proud to call you a friend all of these years, and I wish you all the best as you begin the next exciting chapter of your life. And I think I can safely say that the saddest thing about you leaving is that we will not have Hershey products at our meetings any longer. So with that, I yield back the balance of my time.
Not only are you losing Hershey products, but I've lost Hershey from my district.
Oh,
Thanks to the
no.
redistricting.
So your successor is not even going to be in.
Yeah, they're all very sad about this, by the way. But thank you for the very kind and generous remarks. And I remember coming, yeah, Mr. Bishop, yeah.
You recognize for a moment. I just want to take a moment to acknowledge your service to this committee. Since this is your final markup for the subcommittee, you had a direct and a profound impact on veterans and military families. And I am grateful, and our country is grateful for that. It was a great honor for me to serve alongside you as ranking member. During this time, I really gained a great appreciation for your ability to put party politics aside for the better good. You were a champion for your district and the country as a whole. And I'd be remiss if I didn't thank you for your service today and to this committee. I want to thank you and the ranking member, as well as the staff, for the hard work on the bill. Takes great strides in ensuring appropriate funding and in exercising oversight for housing, training, and medical facilities for the service members and the services and benefits that are guaranteed to our veterans. So I commend the committee on its efforts, but I especially want to express a fond farewell, but a sad farewell, because we'll miss you. You've been a great member, you've been a great friend, and it's been a pleasure serving with you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Bishop. This
Mr.
one.
Chairman, may I? Sure. First of all, associate myself with all the remarks, but just a special thank you for really demonstrating as a committee chair what fairness is about and what democracy truly means. And also for your understanding of veterans of color, minority veterans, And I know, you know, I've been working very hard with your staff and all of our members on the specific and unique issues that our minority veterans really have. And you really, I mean, it was no trying to convince you, because you got it. And so I just want to thank you on behalf of all of our minority veterans and also my district. You've been very helpful in all of the issues we've had to deal with our VA and with our Alameda Point and all of the work we're doing there, and really going to miss you quite a bit. So thank you, and I will fill in with, since we don't have Hershey, now I will bring my Ghirardelli chocolates. They're made in my district, okay?
Gonna hold you to that.
I brought them because in deference to our chairman in Hershey. So thank you very much. God bless you.
Mr. Chairman, I want to, before we go to the big chairman and ranking member, I just want to make sure that I underscore your statements that you made about our staff, because you have had the support of an incredible staff, as we all have. I want to thank Matt Washington and Caitlin Lane on my staff, and Rosalind Kumar, who's only days from having departed my team, and Sarah and Sue and and
Tracy.
and Kia, and we have a really good support staff that knows this stuff backwards and forwards and makes us look like we actually do too. So, thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, thank you all for the very kind words. And Mr. Bishop, it was great serving with you too. As when you were ranking member, it was you're a great mentor and you provide a lot of really good guidance and a great friend. And thank you, Barbara and Mrs. Lowy, all of you for the very kind words and cooperation. I really enjoyed it. So with that, I'd like to recognize our full committee, full chair of the committee. Mr.
Thank you very much, Charlie. The effusive praise is well-deserved, and I know all of you wish you the best as you exit from Congress. And Debbie, Charlie's no shrinking violet either. It's nice at times to have an ally in the caucus who talks common sense. I'm not sure what that means, but I think you know what I mean. But I'm awfully grateful to both of you for your working relationship, and Sue Qantas now, you know, taking over with such a depth of knowledge and some remarkable staffers here. I think it's correct to say that the VA healthcare system is the largest healthcare system in the world. And obviously for us, there's nothing more important than looking after the men and women who've served our country, whether they are sick or injured abroad in Germany, or being transported back from the Middle East, or they're at Brooke Army Center, or out in Washington State, or at Bethesda. We're enormously proud of the men and women who serve, and the men and women who serve them, many of whom are veterans as well. And my hat's off to the MilCon committee for being the first committee out of the box. I think it's because of the nature of your responsibility. And what you've done, I think, if you look at the leadership vacuum, it's good to know that the men and women in Congress can provide the degree of stability and predictability, even if there's uncertainty at the top. And I think it's important for American veterans to know that Congress has their backs. Let me say, just from there are some issues in this bill which I know you've discussed. Ms. Lowy and I may remember we were in this room about 4 years ago with then Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel and then Secretary of the VA Rick Shinseki, who was formerly the Army Chief of Staff. It seems like it was 400 years ago. It was all about electronic medical records. And I know there's a substantial investment, and for those of you who know my views, this is a continuing concern to me, as will be, I think, issues that relate to, I think, the obligation of the authorizers to do something on VA choice. I think there's some issues there as well, but I'm awfully grateful to all the committee members for putting their shoulder behind the plow to get this bill out into the public arena, because I think there's no important responsibility than looking after those who've served as well. And good Godspeed to you, Charlie, and thank you for the time.
Chairman Freeland-Heisen, really appreciate, again, those kind words. With that, I'd like to recognize the the ranking member of the full committee, Mrs. Lowy.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, your head is getting bigger and bigger. Because you know that all of us around the table and most of us in the Congress just will miss you tremendously. You've been a friend, you've been a voice of reason, you are articulate, you know your material, all the subject matter. I have a feeling you're going to keep in touch with us in some capacity, and but I'm really sorry. It's a tremendous loss to this committee and to the Congress, and we are always there to heed your good advice, so I thank you very, very much for your service to your country. We all know, and it's been said, but it doesn't hurt to say it again, that we owe a tremendous debt of gratitude to those who have sacrificed for us in our armed forces, as well as their family members who share in the service to our country. That's why the work of this subcommittee is so important, to ensure that our veterans receive the honors, benefits, and assistance they have earned. The fiscal year 2019 bill for military construction and Veterans Affairs, as we know, would provide $96.9 billion, a $4 billion increase over the, by the way, when you always have more money, it makes it easier to come to some conclusion. So I'm delighted because the $4 billion increase over fiscal year 2018 enacted level. There are many essential components of the bill. I just wanted to mention a few. $2.9 billion for the Veterans Benefits Administration, $1.8 billion to address veterans' homelessness. And I really hope we look at that account carefully. It really shocks me when I visit the food banks in my district and you see the veterans, and some of them are so lonely and don't have good caregivers that I've met several people at the food banks who bring it to their home because they've developed personal relationships with them. $511 million to support the health need of women's veterans. And the bill honors the budget agreement, provides the second installment of $2 billion for VA infrastructure improvements. I've long advocated, I hate to even mention it again, Mr. Big Chairman, for DOD and the VA to use the same electronic health record system, which would coordinate care for veterans once they leave the service and provide them the support they deserve. And while former VA Secretary David Shulkin put VA on their path, 4 or 5 years later, the contract to do this, I can't believe it, still remains unsigned. It's my hope that, and by the way, Chairman Rogers and I had many open hearings, many closed hearings, and it's hard for me when I checked on it again to see that the bill was still unsigned. It is my hope that the resources and oversight in this bill will ensure that the project moves quickly. It's hard to say so many years later that it's going to move quickly, but the federal government must efficiently meet the health needs of our veterans. Lastly, it's unconscionable that a veteran who has the courage to seek treatment for substance abuse should be turned away for weeks because the VA does not have a space available. I do hope we really focus on that. It is shocking to me. I was recently up to Montrose, and you get all the details. It shouldn't be that way. And I thank the chairman for including report language I requested to urge the VA to reduce wait times for access to inpatient substance abuse treatment to address this issue. So as I conclude again, I want to thank you, Chairman Dent. It's been an honor for me to work with you, to know you. I hope you'll keep in touch. I know you will continue to make every day of your life count. And I know your family probably, I won't say is delighted, and I know they, I figured you'd say it rather than me. But you've been really a treasure, and I look forward to continuing to learn from you and work together in whatever capacity you choose to serve. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Again, thank you, Mrs. Lowy, and thank you all for, again, the very kind and generous remarks. I consider everybody on this subcommittee good friends, and I really do appreciate the time being able to serve with all of you in this great institution. And, you know, I'll tell you, I know I'm going to miss it. It's, I hate to admit that, but you're going to miss it, and especially you're going to miss the people. Might not miss some of the shenanigans that goes on around here, but we'll certainly miss all of you. And so with that, is there any further discussion, or does any member wish to offer an amendment to the measure before us at this time? Hearing none, I now recognize Mr. Fortenberry for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Unless you need any more kind words, I move that the bill be favorably reported to the full committee.
Is there, all those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The motion is approved, and I ask unanimous consent that staff be permitted to make technical and conforming changes to the measure just approved. And please ensure that the materials that are here before you are returned to the subcommittee staff before you leave the room. And with that, I just want to say, too, before we gavel out, that Debbie Wasserman-Scholes and I and Jeff Fortenberry all came in together, and our children were very young. Yes. And they're not so young anymore. Not so young. I just wanted to remind everybody of that. So again, thank you all, and meeting's adjourned.
See you in May.
See you May 8th, yeah.